So I'm working on a project where we bring in model data in JSON, and then we use it to lay out a display adaptive cards. And then I go in. We actually tended to manipulate that JSON to change the data as we run business rules against it. And you think about it, it's like, oh, that's really ugly, right? One of the things about Flutter on Dart is this notion of functional programming and the notion of immutable data. And we don't want nulls. We don't want the data to be mutable. And right now, if you do it by default, you deal with JSON data, you end up with like a JSON map of lists of list of maps, right? And so it's super easy to take the data as it comes in and then accidentally or on purpose manipulate it. And then you're like, oh, was that a good idea? And so what I wanted to be able to do is build a serializable objects. I'm going to do serializable immutable objects. I'm going to show you how I kind of lay these out. I'm going to use QuickType.io, which can generate JSON serialized objects for about like 20-something different languages. And I started playing with the Dart, and now I'm going to have to do a pull request because there's something I want to change in it. And yeah, it always works that way. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to do longitude and latitude. We're going to use coordinates on the surface of the Earth, not in space, not underwater, not on the moon. Longitude and latitude to give you a location anywhere on the Earth, and we're going to make it a double, and probably it should be something more sophisticated than that, but I don't care. This is the example we did, and it works good enough for what we're doing, right? So the first thing we would do when we want to build an object around some kind of data we're going to get in, the question is, can we have nulls, right? And let's start by saying, and we don't want it to blow up, and if it's possible to have nulls, we want to know about that. So we're going to add null safety to this in this case, and I'll show you later we're going to take that away because it turns out a coordinate's useless with only one latitude or the longitude. Well, in most cases, it wouldn't really be a location if it didn't have one of those. And so, but first thing I'm going to say is, if those things can be nullable, we need to tell people that, right? And then we're going to get rid of that. And the way we're going to get rid of that is we're going to make those properties required. And now the fact that it's null safe, it's always null safe, right? Because it's a required attribute. And so something's going to be provided. And we didn't create a default. And so if they don't give us a value, and by removing the null safety piece here. Anyway, you get the idea, right? So all the properties are required. And what we want to be able to do also now is I would like to make this object immutable, right? And the simplest way to do that is we declare the properties final, and now I've got an immutable object, right? And so what I want to be able to do is serialize this thing too. And what that means is we're going to be able to take a JSON string or a JSON map and create one of these objects that's immutable. Or we would be able to take this object and convert it to a JSON map and then to a JSON string and send it somewhere, right? I really love this. So if I take the types off of this, you can actually see, sorry, there's no way to scale this differently. Somebody was complaining the fonts weren't big enough before. You know what, can I make it smaller and we'll see what happens? Yeah, not super helpful. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna take this off the side real quick, because you've seen how it works. All right, so if we, what it did was it generated 4 methods to deal with JSON, right? It generated 2 methods to deal with JSON strings and 2 methods to deal with JSON objects. This is really cool. If I get JSON strings from a HTTP or I'm going to send them there, I can use 2 of these methods. And if I end up going to be manipulating JSON arrays or something and then passing it to this, I can do that too. And so there are 2 factories, and the reason there are 2 factories is I actually wanted these properties to be inside the class. If you didn't want that, you can actually, you could create functions to do this for you, but I always put mine inside. So it created 2 factory methods, create a coordinate from raw JSON, create a coordinate from a JSON map. And then it said you can go to JSON and you can go to a JSON map, and those are both instance methods. And that's it. So now, using this tool, I've got a class that's a coordinate that's JSON serializable, and it turns out it's immutable because it's got final variables. And if you have a final variable, it can only be set when the object's created. Cool, right? So that's super useful. But then it's like, Joe, I really want a coordinate where I have a base coordinate and then I want to move, 4 degrees east. I don't know, did I say that right? Anyway, right, I'm going to move 4 degrees to east, and I can't change this thing. We don't want to, right? Because the start point, we don't want anybody changing it. If they want to have an end point that's 4 degrees off, well, typically in Flutter, what we do is we use a copy method. And so what this thing will do is generate the copy. And so what you can do with a copy method is, where is it? Oh, right here. So what you can do is you just say start coordinate dot copy with change the latitude, right? And if you don't provide one of those 2 properties, it'll use the existing one from the existing object. So you can even say go east 3 degrees, go west 3 degrees, go north 3 degrees, go south 3 degrees, go in east and north 3 degrees. It's great. And so this thing, what I like about this is, it gives me a pretty good sample of an object that is immutable and serializable that I can hand code. Or I could take something like a JSON schema, or I could take JSON here. So in this case, I switched over to one that's got a JSON with just greetings and instructions in it. And you can see that this thing went out and generated the finals to make it immutable. It generated the constructor. It generated a copy with, so that you could create a new one. And you see this in theme.copy with, right? There's a bunch of objects in Flutter that are immutable. And if you want to change a theme, you end up creating a new theme that's based on the original. And so this code will do that. And then it's got all the serialization in it. I just think this thing's super cool. If you're going to, and you can feed it like bigger stuff, right? Like I can do multiple JSONs here. And this is like artists, albums, and tracks. And it will go out and generate all of those for me, at least giving me a starting point. Even if you don't want to use it, it gives you a place to start. Final immutable, serializable, deserializable, copyable, so that you can create a new instance. I think is really cool, and it's a way to make your code more stable by not manipulating underlying data sets that are shared across different modules. Have a great day.